Yes, my name is Mark Milam, and I'm applying for a copyright motion picture Hollywood movie called Preacher Man. Motion picture copyright called Preacher Man. Denzel Washington will be in the movie. He's the main character. Mark Milam, Hollywood's best kept secret. They call me Whitey because of my hair. Glistening. Tyler Perry, actor, director, producer, and perhaps Oprah Winfrey, Preacher Man's wife. Preacher Man, motion picture copyright, takes place in Atlanta, Georgia, years after Martin Luther King's speech and Rosa Parks not given her seat on the bus. Preacher Man is played by Denzel Washington. Whitey is played by myself, and Tyler Perry is the deacon of the church, or second in command of the sermons, if need be. I guess Preacher Man's wife could be Oprah Winfrey. There are numerous couples in the church that have gone outside their race to be married. After getting to know the people in the church, everyone is equal. Some older blacks in the church may see this as a hex or a curse against those families of interracial marriage. People don't realize that slavery was abolished in 1865 or so by President of the United States, and this would be 154 years later, 1865, 2019, that many whites and blacks, nearly 30% or so, may have some white of them black blended in families. Could be the great-great-grandfather was a plantation owner, and he may have had numerous black women as their partners. Preacher Man's mother always wanted him to be a meteorologist, a weatherman with science and computer technology, but Preacher Man decided on seminary school instead, to be a preacher or an ordained minister instead. Preacher Man was an altar boy and always attended church with his grandma. Preacher Man got accepted to the University of Georgia Seminary School and graduated cum laude with 10% of his classmates. Preacher Man went to college for an extra 2 years to receive his doctorate degree. Preacher Man in his 40 years as preaching persuaded more than 25 men and 5 women to get their seminary degree from a college of their choice. Preacher Man's church holds more than 20,000 people in Atlanta, Georgia region. Preacher Man has also written numerous books and has been mentioned in more than 100 articles. Preacher Man's church is paid off. He receives a salary of 7 figures, and Whitey and Tyler Perry have a salary of $250,000. Preacher Man has been married for 40 years and has a wife and 2 kids and 5 grandchildren. Whitey has been behind the podium at least a dozen times with women surfacing his engine. Some people in the congregation can tell what's going on, and you can hear them laughing and giggling. There was one instance where an 85-year-old black woman, she willed him her estate or life savings to me. The old lady had no living survivors or family members, so after she caught the excretion load in the back of her throat, oh yes, she swallowed, $2 million came to Whitey 6 months later. The lady had to restructure her living will, and I was her beneficiary. Examples of sermons or phrases. Is there a black Jesus and Santa Claus? Was black Jesus or white Jesus crucified at the cross? Is it okay for whites to call us black, coloreds, or the N-words? Where to draw the line? Were Adam and Eve black or white? End of time, Armageddon, doomsday, biblical prophecies, or Nostradamus? What do white people think when blacks go to church? Whites always think, kill the white man, kill the white man. Why do black preachers drive a Cadillac? Women and men in church or choir, man, do those black women have some beautiful singing voices. It's sometimes loud in black churches. Hallelujah, praise Jesus. Is this to get the devil out of a certain individual? Does a prayer chain help people who are sick or need to be saved? Why do most black women only speed going to church service, Sunday service, and get most of the speeding tickets on Sundays by policemen? I hear the old song, stand up and testify, a lot. Black churches have revivals, a lot covered dish meals afterwards, and fish fries. How does Preacher Man prepare for their sermons on Sunday, and a quarter of the time a year on Wednesdays. 40 years have multiple same sermon every 2 years, or do go by certain disciples in a Bible. Now in 21st century you have internet, YouTube, television. Boats from Africa near the Civil War and dreaded words of black people, slavery, Abraham Lincoln. Damn, when coming over from Africa, it was hot, hot, hot. No bug repellent from mosquitoes, malarias. How many boats sunk? What about food and water? How many people died when at sea? You know, salt water can't be good to drink, dehydration and diarrhea. Census update. How many whites in the USA before blacks came over from Africa? How many blacks in the United States after 140 years or 2019? Regarding black unwed mothers or teenagers, one woman may have 4 fathers and 7 children, a line of mouths to feed at Thanksgiving and Christmas time. The father of that child may have 3 kids of his own. The children or toddlers may look completely black, charcoal black, or be a red bone. If black woman has no job, the family has to rely on food stamps or money from the wages from the father. Some fathers may be complete assholes and neglect his or torture the child. I've seen firsthand of a woman driving down the road with 7 children that are not in the baby seats or no seat belts at all. What if that car was involved in an accident at 60 miles per hour? There's a good chance 1 or 2 or perhaps all 7 children are dead. Why don't black women then give up their children for adoption and make $10,000? Is the woman in that niche desperate for food stamp support? That means that the mother may need to find a supportive sugar daddy. If not, the woman may turn to prostitution, drugs, or alcohol. I've seen firsthand of a woman driving down the... we'll get back to the preacher man. If, like the preacher man, I had to live with Grandma because my mother was never around the house and she was into mischievous behavior, such as robbery, and was incarcerated in prison for months to years at a time. Preacher man, Grandma, was 60 years old and was a retired social worker, so Granny had a Social Security of $1,200 coming into the house with no mortgage payment, no car payments, so it was comfortable living for us. This refers to other families in the neighborhood. When I was living with my mom and 6 kids, I had to call a lot of men uncle, nearly a dozen, and damn if those men weren't mean. Preacher man was born in 1960, so some of the items as crack pipes were in the 80s and when I was 20 years old. I must be talking about the generation 20 to 40 years younger than me, as when some kids of the early 2000s may have had a child on dope at age 8. On my street, you could always recognize the drug dealers with their BMW, Lexus, and Mercedes-Benz. The crack kids would have their blue jeans down to the ass with no belt to hold their pants up. Sometimes there may be an automobile like a Caprice cop car with pumping air shocks to move up and down the car's body frame, sort of what Mexicans do. If a black family of 7 children and no father does not live in the city with city water and utilities, then they must live out in the country. If 7 children all take separate baths and showers, the well may run dry the well tank, so the family may have to have a couple of those 55-gallon drums with a gutter downspout to catch the roof water. There, the family can take 2 gallons out and wash up around the edges, armpits, face, groin areas, and buttocks. They can also use the water for boiling water and to eat home-cooked meals. Sometimes when my neighbors were at church, my 2 older brothers were instructed to steal a chicken. My mom put out a rope on a tree, and once the chicken's head was decapitated, my brothers and sisters had a ball running around after the headless chicken. With 7 children and 1 chicken, that was slim pickings with not too much chicken to go around. That's why we had to get the bone marrow out of the bones, chewed the bones, and ate the guts or gizzards as a soup. When there's a school bully or a fight at school, there is normally a crowd of a dozen or 12 to witness the fight. With all my brothers and sisters being only 3 years of age apart, there's usually about 4 of us in the circle at the fight. There has been a time or two when all of us were at the fight, and if you were losing the fight, we would call in another brother to fight. Most fights usually stop after the first person gets a bloody nose or busted lip. But one time, all 7 of us were in the fight with 7 different family members, or the other opposing family members, and dang if our sisters weren't a slapping and a pulling hair of the 3 other women and may have gut punched one of the other family member boys. I've seen this in white people and in blacks, but why do some people have flattened noses? Is this hereditary? Or could it be from cocaine use because of the septum or cartilage of the nose is eating apart and the nose is flattened? That's mysterious information there. I'll have to check it up on the internet. In some families with 7 children, that means 4 people doubled up in 2 beds, 1 or 2 of the kids on the couch, or it could mean a child to sleep on the floor. Preacher man, I was the only child to go to college or seminary school. 3 kids got GEDs in community college after the associate degrees. 2 brothers were plumbers, 3 sisters were CNAs, certified nursing assistants. In 10 years they later got their nursing degrees. And we had 1 brother incarcerated for life behind bars for first-degree murder, but we always tried time to visit him every couple of months. My grandmother that I lived with was at 60. She had 7 children and 16 great-grandchildren. My name is Mark Milam, and I'm applying for a motion picture copyright for a Hollywood movie called Preacher Man. My name is Mark Milam, and I'm applying for a motion picture copyright for a Hollywood movie called Preacher Man. Preacher Man. Thank you.